Oh, sorry.
Next up, we have the address from the State of the Tribes. We will ask Shannon Holsey, the President of the Stockbridge Muncie community, to step forward and begin the address. Welcome to our chamber.
Members of the Senate, members of the State Assembly, constitutional officers, cabinet secretaries, justice of the Wisconsin Supreme Court, fellow tribal leaders, esteemed elders, and other honored guests. I want to thank the tribal leadership for giving me this opportunity to stand before you today and to celebrate and to honor our elders, veterans, families, and youth, and to receive the blessings those who came before us, and to bestow those blessings onto those who will follow us. Chairman, Chairwoman, and Presidents, it gives me distinct honor at this time to introduce them, but I have to say it is so much more than that. These people take the title away, they are so much more than that. They are incredible individuals that I can say they are not just my peers, but they become my family. They give selflessly just much like all of you. And they do incredible things, not only within their governments, but within their communities. And with this, I have great honor and gratitude in serving beside them. So with that in mind, at this time, I'd like to introduce our tribal leaders. Ryan Bainbridge, Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians. Tribe of Wisconsin. Robert Blanchard, Bad River Band of Lake Superior Indian Tribe. Wilford Cleveland, Ho-Chunk Nation. Oneida Nation, President Chairman Gus Frank, Forest County Potawatomi Community. Mick Isham, Lakota Ray Band of Lake Superior Indians. Lipwick President. Chris Medved, Swakagan Chippewa Communities, and he is also the President of the Organization of Great Lakes Intertribal Council. Louis Taylor, St. Croix Chippewa Indians of Wisconsin. And finally, Joseph Wildcat Sr., Black Flambeau Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians. humility, and in the spirit of acceptance of all. So thank you so much, Mom and Dad. I love you so much. Today, before we began the assembly, there was a special assembly around the rotunda, and it was performed by the Indian School of Milwaukee. And I am so incredibly grateful for them for coming. And it was very purposefully intended, simply because I wanted to express and show people what diversity really looks like. So a special thanks to the Indian School of Milwaukee Youth Drum, who honored us today. And it was one way for us to honor our youth and to celebrate and convey the rich diversity of all tribal nations through cultural and the rich diversity that tribal nations bring, and to show value of not only the Indian School of Milwaukee, but all tribal educational learning institutes bring to us. Stated it best when she said, "I don't think anybody, anywhere, can talk about the future of our people or of any organization without talking about education. Whoever controls the education of our children controls our future." We appreciate this opportunity to recognize the value of this platform it affords 11 tribal nations. We also want to acknowledge the significant impact and the contributions Wisconsin tribes bring to the state of Wisconsin, both culturally, financially, and historically. I hope it lives and aligns within the context of partnership building as leaders to leaders, government to government, in addressing our collective needs and concerns of the communities and the people that we represent, and to further advance a relationship that results in effective and positive outcomes that benefit everyone's interests. I stand before this assembly today as an individual who, like most of you, has accepted the role of public servant. When you take away the fancy titles that each of us holds as elected leaders, we share the title of public servant. We are asked to give a voice to those who cannot speak. We are asked to make sacrifices, both professionally and personally, to meet our leadership obligations and the challenges we currently face and into the future. We ask our families to make sacrifices as they support us in our leadership role. And while these sacrifices may seem great, I only need to look at the flags carried in by the color guard to know that my sacrifices are small in comparison. I am profoundly grateful to take this opportunity to honor the men and women who have served in the United States Armed Forces. I am privileged to recognize the sacrifices and selfless contributions our nation's service members. Our unified purpose is to defend our constitutions, protect our people, maintain our nation's sovereignty. I believe is the greatest equalizer among all those nations present. How proud we are of our contribution to the United States and the sovereign nations represented. But with that comes great responsibility of the collective needs of all veterans, and we must ensure that those challenges they face are being addressed and facilitated. In Indian country, our veterans are held in special regard. They open our ceremonies, and they are only asked to carry the flags of our nations. American Indians serve at the highest rate per capita of any other nationality in the United States. We honor the warriors in our communities and in our other brothers in arms, I want to take this opportunity to shed light onto the role of our community's women warriors. There are over 140,000 American and Indian Alaskan veterans living in the United States. 10% of these veterans are women. It was with purposeful intent that the color guard today was made up of all women. And it was wonderful, forward-thinking, brave women, whether they're Native American or not, and I am entirely indebted and grateful for everything that they have done to afford me this platform today. And thank you. I'm extremely honored to pay special recognition to two veterans, Stockbridge Muncie Tribal member Ernestine Murphy and Ho-Chunk Nation member Merle Thompson. World War II U.S. Marine Specialist veteran Ernestine Murphy and Korean War veteran Merle Thompson served their country honorably and with dignity. These women showed us how ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Both raised in the ranks of their branches to work in highly confidential areas. Ernestine's services took her to Washington, D.C., where she worked in the secret confidential files of the Navy, while Merle Thompson trained in the Technical Communications and Critical Program that enabled her to serve as code talker in the Korean War. Both were honorably discharged in the Armed Forces. However, that didn't stop from them continuing to serve their communities. Ernestine worked for our tribe for over 20 years at the Stockbridge Muncie Health and Wellness Center, while Merle worked as a library assistant in the schools, and after her discharge, her thirst for learning eventually took her to Mount Scenario College, where she graduated with a degree in American Indian Studies. She taught language, history, and crafts. Merle helped the Ho-Chunk children and Head Start children learn their language. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Not only did these women profoundly serve and protect, they did so with grace, shattering glass ceilings and modeling to generations of women to follow that the stereotyped roles that society assigned them did not have to stay the norm. And at the heart of it, it would be in service to others. That our nations are better off for choosing to look at capabilities rather than the packaging. As leaders, it is our responsibility to ensure that the barriers these strong, capable women broke remain broken. That strategically, we would be remiss in our leadership if we didn't open ourselves to the diversity of humankind and accept what the person brings to the table. Let's remove the titles that so often go with stereotype casting. Let's stop looking for ways to divide and take every opportunity for inclusion. Leadership is challenging, and you are only as good as the team that you surround yourself with. Author James Hogan perhaps described it best when he stated, "The most pressing environmental problem we face today is not climate change. It is the pollution in the public square where a smog of adversarial rhetoric and polarization stifles discussion and debate, creating resistance to change our ability to solve our collective problems. It's time to put aside our differences and rise up to meet the needs of our constituents and have those conversations that evoke the plan to meet them. It is not always about knowing the answer. The gift is sometimes found within the collective discovery. Leadership is everybody's business." Leadership is not easy. If it was, guess what? Everyone would do it. We are facing many challenges during neighbors, constituents, family, and children. Preparing for the next generation is not a Native American thing, it's a people thing. It's a leader thing. The true challenge is how we will collectively leverage the relationship to prepare Wisconsin for the next generation to come. I can guarantee you right now that every person in this room wants good schools, sustainable employment, safe communities and new opportunities, drinkable water and breathable air. Above all, we want a bright future for our children and grandchildren, a future of limitless possibilities. Native American tribes are dynamic. We pulse with an undeniable energy, an eagerness to seize the opportunities of tomorrow, our ability to serve effectively, that we must work well together for the betterment of all who serve. The Wisconsin tribal nations have demonstrated a tremendous history of working collaboratively for the betterment of the whole, evidenced by the fact that our ancestors cared enough for their neighbors to help them in time of need. This philosophical view still endures today. Tribal governments retain our power to determine our own governing structures, pass laws, enforce laws, through police departments and tribal courts. This has not only benefited tribal members, but it also has benefited our neighbors in the surrounding villages, towns, townships, and counties. Through formal cooperative agreements, we share the burden to care for the citizens. When our neighbors struggle under the burden of increased costs, tribal nations have been able to reduce and lessen the burdens by assisting with significant financial resources to support public safety, municipalities, and responding to emergency calls, taking on child support cases, and responding to everything else that's needed. We are committed to the health and wellness, not only for our tribal communities, but understand the need that extends beyond the commitment of our tribal borders. As we look to share leadership responsibilities and similarities, we also must be cognizant of the differences that celebrate diversity within each and every one of us. The concept of diversity encompasses acceptance and respect. Unity does not have to mean uniformity. It means understanding that everybody is unique and recognizing that our individual differences. These can, along with the dimensions of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, age, physical abilities, religious beliefs, political beliefs, and other ideologies. It is the exploration of these differences in a safe, positive, and nurturing environment that will help us succeed. It is about understanding each other and moving beyond simple tolerance and embracing and celebrating the rich dimensions of diversity contained within everyone. We, the people, means everyone. Understanding the government status of tribal nations is critical for successful collaborations. We, the tribal nations, are not asking other leaders to approve it, but to understand it. Just like the state of Wisconsin is provided the capacity to create policy that will address the state's specific needs, so too our tribal nations provided the capacity and the recognition to create policy that will address our tribe's needs. Believe me when I tell you that we will come from a much stronger place as allies joined together than two separate governments. And there are in the world. In the world. The woodland tribes of the Great Lakes area were the first to use the many resources the Great Lake Basin, abundant game, fertile soil, and plentiful water enabled their early development of hunting, sustainable agriculture and fishing, and respecting and caring for the Great Lakes is an inherent responsibility passed on for generations. We agree with Governor Walker's opposition to the defunding of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. It's something we should all be able to support, and the significance of protecting its ecosystem and speeding up the progress towards cleaning up areas of great concern, preventing and controlling invasive species, reducing nutrient runoff, restoring habitat to protect native species is critical, and it must be done by everyone. Collaborating on these types of conservation initiatives strengthens the relationship between the tribes and states. The Back 40 mine poses significant threats to the state of Wisconsin's environment and citizens. The Back 40 metallic sulfide mine is proposed to sit on the upper Michigan side of the border, only a mere 150 feet from the banks of the Menominee River, which forms the border between Wisconsin and upper Michigan. The proposed site also threatens valuable cultural resources of the Menominee Indian tribe of Wisconsin, including confirmed burial mound sites. The state of Wisconsin's approach to metallic mining is a shining example of a common sense approach to metallic mining. Wisconsin's Prove It First law passed with overwhelming bipartisan support in both houses and was signed by former Governor Thompson in 1998. The Prove It First law places permit requirements on metallic mines applicants to demonstrate a mine has to operate 10 years and a mine that has been reclaimed for 10 years, each without causing significant pollution. Needless to say, the permit requirement has yet to be met in almost 20 years and wouldn't be met if the Back 40 mine was allowed a few more hundred feet from its current location. Laws like the Prove It First law must remain in place to ensure that Wisconsin we love for our grandchildren is a healthy and prosperous Wisconsin. The Menominee Nation and many allies, including local citizens, local governments, environmental organizations, and grassroots organizations, are opposed to the mine and are committed to stopping the project and are organized in efforts to bring about public awareness and about the harmful impacts the mining operation would have if approved. We are concerned with the present and future state of our environment. While the mine is permissible only temporary measures, creating temporary jobs and temporary revenue, for Michigan, there stands a horrific impact on the land and water. The ponds are left for us to clean up and maintain, with no plan of how they are going to be eradicated and the land reclaimed. Water is life. The concept. Just as it is to the threats of the gray wolves and the legislation allowing We need to ask ourselves, what kind of earth are we giving our children and grandchildren? We ask you to stand in solidarity with us as we continue to fight against this perfection. We invite you to sit down with us. Give us an opportunity to educate you on the significance of this project with us. These environmental concerns also threaten our state tourism industry, estimated to be over $1 billion annually, because tourism is so closely aligned with our outdoor recreation and the use of parks and lakes. It could have a resounding long-term effect on our natural resources and sustainable growth. Does a small benefit outweigh the risk? I ask you. Education. Education was important to natives even before Wisconsin was Wisconsin. Electa Queeney was a member of the Stockbridge Muncie community. She founded one of the first schools in what would become Wisconsin, and was the first woman to teach in a public school in a territory which would be Wisconsin. And she never, ever became recognized as a U.S. citizen of the United States. Electa Queeney was born in 1798 in Clinton, New York, into the Stockbridge tribe. She was schooled at a Quaker school on Long Island, New York, and she spent 4 years. And at Clinton Female Seminary. Later, she studied for 6 years at Women's Seminary in Cornwall, Connecticut. On completing her education, Electa taught at a mission school in New York for 6 years. She relocated west in 1827, and by 1828 had established a school at Statesburg, taught between 40 and 50 students at her school, which was the first public school in Wisconsin, making her the first woman school teacher in Wisconsin. She taught 4 classes in a law school. Though most of her students were native, they studied in English, and she used standard text to teach arithmetic, geography, language, oration, penmanship, and spelling. Two writers indeed. Electa was a pioneer for education, certainly a woman shattering glass ceilings, a good steward to her community, and a true example of an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. As tribal leaders, should we not be willing to place ourselves above what we are asking our school-age children and educators to do? Wisconsin Act 31 placed certain requirements on school districts and the Department of Public Instruction to educate Wisconsin students on tribal history, culture, and sovereignty. The act has been in existence for 28 years. The better equipped our children are to understand the history and the culture of all citizens that make up this wonderful state of Wisconsin, the more apt they are to embrace the values and the opinions of others. Like my Coco always said, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you're coming from. And while the act started out with good intentions, for it to be effective, it needs to be taken off the school shelves and reviewed by the state legislature. A collaboration with state legislators, the tribes of Wisconsin, and the Wisconsin Indian Education Association could provide the opportunity to enter into a paramount journey that would include strengthening relationships with each other in the state of Wisconsin. Tribes play a significant role in relationship to the history of the state. We have many opportunities to include and to celebrate the otherness diversity presents for school districts, to openly celebrate all cultures, especially during significant milestones like graduations, commencements, and being allowed to wear things of cultural significance by demonstrating the meaning by their own assertion of their cultural identity and its inclusiveness, and to forge an opportunity to educate and share not only with their peers, but with their communities, the cultural richness it brings. We call upon the superintendent Evers and the state tribal legislators to enlist the Department of Education to work in consultation with tribal education leaders and WIEA to plan and to rebrand Act 31 as the First Nations Act or the Indigenous Studies Act. This means more administrative changes. Tribal nations are so committed to education. In fact, they have entrusted millions and millions of dollars to both their tribal members and non-tribal members alike. A great example of this is the Oneida Indian Higher Education Grant, which started in 1997. This grant allows Oneida the opportunity to receive a scholarship and attend an accredited higher education school of their choice. In the past 19 years, the Oneida Indian Nation has invested nearly $178 million for higher education funds. Amazing. And while a majority of that money that was spent at nearby schools such as Northeast Wisconsin Technical University, University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, and the College of Navigation. The program has been widely successful and has completed about 3,100 degrees that have been conferred. Oneida's higher education attainment in Brown and Outagamie counties is highest among all residents. So why should we care about preserving tribal languages? Anyone that's taken a foreign language knows that you not only learn the words of the people, but you also learn the people's culture. It can also be used strategically, like examples by Merle and others from Ho-Chunk Nation, and those of Menominee Nation and Oneida Nation, who were code talkers during World War II and the Korean War to serve their country. When a language becomes extinct, it's just like the Great Wolf. It can take along with it much of the history and the culture of the people who spoke it and revered it. I can't stress enough the importance of retaining our tribal languages. Our languages teach us many things about us. Languages identify our relationship to all our relatives, including the four-legged ones and the winged ones, the ones that live in the water or crawl upon the earth, and those that grow from the earth. Our languages identify us and our relationship to creation and the spirits around us, and our children deserve nothing less than to have inherited their own language and for the opportunity for it to be recognized just as valuable as other foreign languages offered within the state of Wisconsin and places of education. What a wonderful opportunity for the state of Wisconsin to build a lasting bridge of understanding and acceptance of the state's tribal nations. But the state was accurate. When Europeans first arrived in what is now the United States, there were more than 300 different languages that were spoken. Today, only 175 remain, but many are only spoken by a small number of elderly people, and we are in danger of disappearing. Healthcare. Healthcare, perhaps one of the most difficult challenges we face as leaders, should be one of the most things that unify us. We need to come together to address the health needs of our people. It still amazes me that in the United States, we are the only major country that does not guarantee health care to all its people. Affordable health care should not be a privilege, it should be a right. So I say this, we've got to work to do. If we cannot address our people's rights to something as basic as life and such access to quality health care, then we need to be big enough to admit we have a problem. I, for one, have more faith in our capabilities, and I know we can come up with reasonable solutions. We cannot speak of health care without the recognition of our most vulnerable, the elderly, disabled, and children. recognizing the potential for a win-win situation for both the state and the tribes. Former and the most incredible DHS Secretary Katie Rhodes, who is a champion for Native communities, committed to a partnership with the Wisconsin tribes to gain federal CMS approval for a new 1915C home and community-based waiver as an option for providing long-term care supports to American Indian members. The focus of the new waiver is long-term care, functionality eligibility, and Medicare financial eligibility for American Indians accessing home and community-based waiver services through a culturally competent service delivery system administered by a federally recognized tribe as delegated by the state Medicaid agency. The tribe's partnerships with DHS continues today under the leadership of Secretary Seameyer. The key goals of a tribal operated waiver remain the same. To more closely align waiver program, administration, and operations with American Indian sovereignty status, creating mutual partnership of governments between the state, the tribes, and the federal government. And to establish a waiver concentrating on the unique long-term care and service delivery system of the American Indian population. We also need to develop solutions that can narrow the health care gap in critical risk areas and which are being experienced disproportionately among American Indians. And finally, maximizing federally qualified health care reimbursement for services provided through tribally operated facilities. The tribes look to continued partnership with the state to gain federal approval of cost-neutral tribal operated waivers. This is a win for the state. For every dollar spent to provide long-term care to Medicaid eligible American Indians, the state will receive 100% reimbursement. Tribes can elect to administer a tribal waiver program that is an avenue to address the social determinants and the influence of the negativity of our health of our people, and ultimately it will improve the tribal membership health outcomes, the quality of life, and the diminishment rates of high mortality before costly institutionalizations occur and before life is lost. We also have challenges that require us to look more deeply and to address the perils of addiction. One such initiative aligns with Governor Walker's participation in the compact to fight opioid addiction, which builds upon the aggressive measures the state has already taken to combat the opioid crisis in Wisconsin. This is something all 11 tribes have prioritized as important, and it aligns with the Stockbridge-Muncie tribe's goal of building an adolescent wellness treatment center, which the government has so graciously earmarked in its budget to create the feasibility and business plan and to build an important resource that serves our communities and expands economic diversity. Lastly, the tribes look forward to expanded partnership and DHS to examine other avenues whereby tribal support can assist the state on all healthcare issues, and that will further maximize partner benefits and serve the health and wellness needs of all of our most important assets, the people we serve. Economic diversification. It has always been the goal for our tribal nations to produce several different revenue streams and to provide our nations with the ability for sustainable growth. A strong, growing, sustainable economy is the goal of every nation. A sustainable economy enhances a nation's standard of living by creating wealth and jobs, encouraging the development of new knowledge and technology, and helping us ensure a brighter future. It's simple. We must grow the economy of the future to make sure that Wisconsin and the tribal communities have the jobs we need to support our families, home, and nation, increase their share of the global economy. If we do not, we will fall behind. This commitment is yielding results. For example, in 2016, among the top 4 minority-owned businesses in the Milwaukee area, 2 were owned by Forest County Potawatomi and Oneida Indian Nation, and they generated over $140 million in revenue. Beyond that, we have businesses that enlist green energy initiatives, technology subsidiaries, producing some of the finest hardwood floors in the world, including Final Four hardwood floors, agricultural endeavors, construction and project management services, and golf courses. A perfect example is the upcoming LPGA, which is going to be hosted by the Oneida Nation, and it is projected to bring in a revenue to Green Bay and the surrounding area in excess of $15 million. We also support Native American entrepreneurial endeavors, which not only employ people, but also meet the ongoing demands to support our infrastructure. Another tribal endeavor that promotes our communities and diversifies is NATOW, the Native American Tourism of Wisconsin organization, which is to promote tourism featuring Native American heritage and culture. Tourism provides an excellent tactic to tribes to diversify our economies while telling the true story concerning our history and culture. Tourism is one of those ways that a tribe can be self-sufficient and boost their economies. It is a very important organization to the tribes and goes directly to promoting tribal tourism. NATOW has formed a strong partnership with the state of Wisconsin, and that will complement all tribal Wisconsin tourism programs. We all know that nothing succeeds without a plan, designated resources, or infrastructure. The tribes are here. Reach out, state leaders. Extend your hand. We are ready to begin work on the challenges we all face. We need to build bridges, not walls. The tribal nations can support you. The tribal nations can support you as we work to address the state's needs for access to technology. We agree with Governor Walker's budget and legislation initiatives regarding the ability to expand broadband access in areas of need. He is correct, and if Wisconsin wants to continue to compete in the global economy, it is crucial to work towards building an infrastructure where every community is able to connect to fast and reliable internet. Tribal nations of Wisconsin are also facing these same challenges. This initiative triples the state's broadband and technology investments and would allow all Wisconsin communities, especially rural areas, to compete for jobs, improve education, and provide higher quality of life. Technology makes the world a smaller place and allows tribes and states to think in more global terms. The tribes also have committed hundreds of thousands of dollars to Wisconsin's infrastructure, to building roads, parks, external businesses, and cultural centers, to name a few. But it doesn't stop there. We must also continue to support public television and broadcasting, which serves as indispensable platform, which allows for diverse communication and affords an opportunity to educate. Building that infrastructure includes utilizing our allies and coordination with state agencies. This will afford additional opportunities to expand the resources and the intellectual knowledge to make well-informed decisions regarding the future and sustainable growth of Wisconsin. When the tribes succeed in business, the state of Wisconsin succeeds. Strong tribal economies equals strong Wisconsin. We also continue to seek advice and guidance from the tribal partners like Gliftwick, the Great Lakes Intertribal Fish and Wildlife Commission, NATOW, WIEA, the Wisconsin State Tribal Relations Initiatives, and I have to say, Don Vick has been a tremendous partner for tribal nations. our guidance through the Tribal Caucus and the Justice League, and of course the State of Wisconsin Joint Legislative Council, and of course MAST, the Midwest Alliance of Sovereign Tribes. We cannot speak of growing our labor force and infrastructure without speaking of education. We have a real state of crisis. This is much bigger than education. We have to close what I call the opportunity gap. The gap between the haves and the have-nots is far too wide. We support the enhancement of advancing educational levels of Head Start and the advancement of quality teaching, but we can't stop there. We need to create the same continuity and provide pay incentive and educational advancement opportunities within our public school and indigenous emergent schools to in order to compete on a broader level. The truth is, with the exception of the more populous urban areas, most children in the state of Wisconsin attend rural schools and therefore are not afforded the option of a voucher system. It also must include a STEM program, or what I like to call STEAM. STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. In order to compete in the future, we should all look to initiatives with STEAM, and they should begin in the 5th grade with the goal of aligning ourselves with post-secondary institutes and working closely with our schools to close the gap and the challenges that thwart our children's readiness for the education demands of tomorrow, and to educate and grow our future labor force in a strategic way. We can't just invest in status quo. We must invest in a vision of reform. We must stop playing catch-up. Early intervention in the form of preschool for every child in America is an educational solution for improving our educational system. Our good friend Denise Juneau said, from Head Start to Harvard. I say from Move to Wisconsin. Getting our babies off to a good start is often the best investment we can make. There's nothing political about this. Yes, we have a long journey ahead of us. Yes, that journey may include challenges, but I promise you this. State leaders, you are not alone. Tribal leaders, you are not alone. Look across this room. We all have allies. We have partnerships waiting to be developed. We have collaborators waiting to bring their expertise and experience. We have each other. We have economies to build, generations to educate, language and conservation to protect, glass ceilings to shatter, communities to expand, and relationships to build. Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our own responsibility for the future. Accountability, a powerful responsibility for every leader. Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. The true leadership for us all is, I ask, if not us, then who? And if not now, when? I thank you for this opportunity, and I appreciate you giving me this time to express my ideas and concerns. It was such an incredible honor. Anisha.
we retire the tribes. Let's give one more round of applause. The assembly will stand in formal for reception in the North Hearing Room. The assembly will reconvene at 2:25. 2:25, the assembly will stand in formal.
Tribal nations, though each separate and distinct, share the same reverence for the earth. We consider her our mother, provides us with our sustenance, and nurtures our spirit. We understand that every one of us is an integral part of the environment. We know that every one thing around us can survive without humans, but that we humans cannot survive without our Mother Earth. What is detrimental to the environment is detrimental to us. I understand how easy it is to draw distinctions about tribes and the state approach to natural resource management. For example, our tribe manages fish for sustenance, while the state manages fish primarily for sport. I would venture to say that we all heard one time or another the debate surrounding the harvest ethic of tribes versus the sport ethic of the state. Frankly, I find this debate to be unproductive. It preys upon long-standing myths that somehow a dead fish at the end of a spear is different than a dead fish at the end of a rod and reel. Ultimately, and most important, this type of debate distracts us from the real issues that we must address together. Declining fish and wildlife populations, loss of spawning grounds, declining wild rice beds, invasive species, a changing climate and extreme weather conditions, and the toxic effects of pollution. We, the tribes and state together, must recognize that it is no longer a matter of who gets to harvest which fish. It is much more urgent matter to make sure that fish remain to be harvested. It is incumbent upon us to protect rather than destroy habitat and to control pollution so that fish are safe to eat. Tribes are particularly attuned to the issue of who defines acceptable levels of pollution. This is because of our reliance on natural resources for much of our diet. For example, there are 4 major foods that we Ojibwe are required to have at all our feasts and funerals. These foods also make up a large portion of our non-ceremonial diets as well. The 4 foods are fish, deer, wild rice, and berries. If there are any contaminants in these foods, we're basically putting those contaminants right into our bodies, and they can bioaccumulate to harmful levels. We must stop destroying habitat and polluting our water and air. We must preserve what we have and restore what we've lost. We are witnessing the consequences of our failure to act when we have the science and should have the wisdom to know better. For example, we see dead zone in Lake Michigan and the Greenberry area. The toxic algal blooms in Lake Erie. The contamination of drinking water because of failure to control agricultural runoff and concentrated animal feeding operations. This is why LCO and other tribes strongly oppose measures like AB 600, which would permit the destruction of our wetlands and our wild rice. It's also why tribes are concerned about things like frac sand mining and the loss of local control over such operations. The proposed Pinoki mine and the legislative changes that accompanied that proposal. Uncontrolled shoreline development and the lessening of shoreline protections.